July is Disability Pride Month. So for these last two videos of July, I've decided to do a two-part deep dive into the intersection of my identities and my mental health, focusing specifically on my experiences with ADHD, depression, and anxiety, with today's focus being on my asexuality. So let's start with the basics. Asexuality is a sexual orientation where a person experiences little to no sexual attraction. For me, discovering and accepting asexuality has been a journey of self-discovery and understanding. It's a kind of journey that I know all too well at this point. Before we dive into how my mental health intersects with my asexuality, I want to share a little bit about that part of my journey. I'm still fairly early in this process, having begun therapy almost 6 months ago, and my ADHD diagnosis came about 4 months ago. It's been a learning curve, understanding how it impacts various aspects of my life. I wouldn't call it a shock to have this diagnosis, but of the three that I mentioned, it's the one that I hadn't been as aware of growing up. But my anxiety and especially my depression were much more evident to me. Both therapy and the recent diagnosis have been very eye-opening, and they play a significant role in how I navigate my asexuality now. Now let's talk about how ADHD plays a role in my asexuality. ADHD can significantly impact how we process emotions in relationships. Here's how it's affected me relating to my asexuality. Sometimes understanding my feelings or lack thereof can be really confusing. ADHD can make it harder to connect with or interpret some of those social cues, which can complicate my understandings of not just asexuality, but a lot of aspects of my life. ADHD often affects how I interact with other people too, which can lead to misunderstandings or difficulties in forming connections. This adds a layer of complexity to my asexual experiences, since social interactions are already challenging. Looking back, I think the biggest way that my ADHD and my asexuality cross each other is that I always struggled in relationships when things were related to me in signs. I didn't pick up that my partner wanted anything physical unless she said so, because I'd be too distracted by my other thoughts. Outside of relationships, I didn't see the now obvious allonormativity that was all around me, because I was focused on my own things, and there were many of them. Sports, movies, comic books, my friends, concerts. Sex just wasn't in my line of vision because unlike those other things I just listed, it wasn't something that I was interested in anyway. I think now it's a part of why I didn't realize my views and desires for sex are so different from other people until I was nearly in my 30s. Now, ADHD has been a much more recent discovery in my life. Frankly, I think it was hidden from me because my anxiety and especially my depression were so overpowering. Depression can make me question my self-worth and whether my asexuality is a valid part of who I am. It can sometimes feel like there's something wrong with me, even though that's not the case, and I know that now. When you're struggling with depression, finding understanding and supportive communities can be tough. It's difficult to navigate asexuality while also dealing with the isolation that depression can bring. The way that my depression interacted with my asexuality when I was in relationships and even when I wasn't was that I always felt inadequate. I felt like I wasn't enough. When these issues did arise in relationships, I often felt like I was less than and like I was broken. I often felt that I didn't deserve them. Even when I wasn't in relationships, but talking with other male friends and sex would come up, I felt like I was behind them in some way that I couldn't quite put my finger on. That really messed me up. Especially without knowing that I was asexual, those experiences played right into my depression. And even after I learned about it, it took a long time to unlearn and undo those misconceptions about myself that I'd formed. Anxiety is another significant factor in my experience of my asexuality. Here's a little bit about how it plays a role. The fear of how others will react to my asexuality or the anxiety about coming out can be really overwhelming. This can make it harder to feel confident in my identity. Anxiety often amplifies the fear of rejection or misunderstanding. This fear can make it challenging to engage with or seek out support from others. Again, anxiety was a big factor both in and outside of relationships for me. If I was in a relationship and I felt that relationship getting more serious, that anxiety of the pressure around sex would build up. If I wasn't in a relationship, but I was around usually, again, my male friends, the conversations that would come up caused me a great deal of stress. I often felt left out and uncomfortable by these conversations, not just depressed about not being able to participate in them, but actively concerned about them coming up in the first place. There were many times that I would make other plans or leave a party early or find some way out of those conversations. Despite these challenges, there are a few ways to manage and find support. The first is therapy. Since beginning therapy, I found it incredibly helpful in processing my emotions and understanding my asexuality better, especially through the lens of my other mental health issues. Finding communities or support groups for both asexuality and mental health can offer a sense of belonging and understanding. I have an Aro and Ace support group that I belong to, and it's helped me a great deal. Practicing self-care and finding ways to manage ADHD, depression, and anxiety has been crucial. This includes things like mindfulness, exercise, and creative outlets, like making videos for me. And if you are struggling with mental health, I've been there too. And it's okay to ask for help. I'm going to leave a link in the description with some great resources for you to look into, including two towards the bottom that are specifically for LGBTQIA+ individuals like us. Remember that you're loved. Remember that you matter, that your voice matters, that your time and place in this world matter. Please do that for me. To wrap things up, navigating asexuality while dealing with ADHD, depression, and anxiety has been complex, but it's also a journey of growth and self-acceptance for me. I hope sharing my experiences has been helpful and that you feel a bit more understood if you are relating to these things. And I want you to know that you're not alone if you do. If you have any thoughts or experiences that you want to share, please leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and follow for more Aro and Ace content. Next time, we'll be talking about how my aromantic identity mixes with my mental health. Thanks for being here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.